Sure appreciate that. Fine message in song. Truly, the Lord is not bound by us and our abilities and what we can and cannot do, because He can do through us what we cannot do on our own. And we're thankful for that. What a wonderful message in song this morning. And thank you, gentlemen. Noah, one of our song leaders, and we appreciate his faithfulness, and all our instrumentalists, and thank you, Brother Andy, in getting all our sound system put back together. And we've got some wires crossed, literally. And so we're so thankful and appreciative of all that you do. So many folks come around and do their part. And again, thanks again to all the mowers. I look out. My grass was mowed this week. I went home and my wife said, did you mow the grass? I said, well, no. I was fixing to, and she said, well, it's mowed. I think it just got mowed today. And I went out there, and by George, it's mowed. And so whoever did that for me, what a blessing it was. Thank you so much for your loving kindness toward me and towards the church. I love Calvary, and I love this house. A lot of folks worked for this place. And when we think about where we were at, you may not know where we were, but if you go down 12th Street in Linton, go up one more, 11th Street, and you'll see on the left side of the road, on the south side of the highway, there's a car wash. Well, that was our church. No, I was going to leave it at that. No, we were driving along, and somebody said, you see that automatic car wash? And one of the boys with them said, yeah, I see it. Said, that's where your mother and I were married. And I thought, some of you could honestly say, yes, you see that automatic car wash? Yeah, that's where I was baptized. Some interesting things could be said there. I remember when we were there, we had a big old, how tall was that fence? 10 foot? 8 foot? Is it 8? 6 foot fence? Boy, it looked taller when I was a boy. It was a hard one to climb, too. And we had gates on it. And it was always fun to stand on the gate and swing out towards the highway until you got caught. And but anyway, we were there one day on recess, and cows were running down the road. And I don't know why there were cows in the middle of Linton, but there were. And then we had one day a deer ran through the city of Linton. Amen. And jumped up a hill and put its head right into the side of the building, broke its neck, and died right there at church. And so I walked in, and by an odd circumstance, we had a conservation officer, high-ranking officer, sitting in Dr. Riker's office. And I said, you're not going to believe this, but Joe Borders just walked up and said a deer ran into the side of the church and is dead. And both of them looked at me like I was an idiot. And I said, I'm telling you, I know you don't believe it. First time this man ever been to our building. Walked out there, and I said, what a crazy day. The CO said, think of what the deer had. What kind of day the deer had? I said, yeah. A little button buck. You could see those two little knobs in the siding on the building. And so, but then Brother Danko came and put that in the ministry. If you want any good hunting stories, talk to me about Brother Danko's hunting. And I've got some really good stories there. Well, let's get serious and get into the book of Job this morning. The title of the message this morning is, That's Where You Can Find Me. Job chapter number 1. That's where you can find me. There are some folks in life you can just count on them. Whether the devil comes hunting you, whether friends betray you, there are going to be some folks that are just going to stand tried and true. Not going to lean to the left, not going to lean to the right. They'll love you. And when you go looking, you're going to find them. The older I get, I realize there's not many of those folks. There's just not many of them. That when you go looking, that's exactly where you're going to find them. You're going to still find them in the house of God. You're going to still find them on their knees. You're going to still find them where they've placed God as preeminent and themselves as secondary. Well, I want that to be where you'll always find me. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I want it to be said, John Riker's going to have a praying knee and a worshipful heart. Brother Donnie did a masterful job in Sunday school this morning. What a wonderful, wonderful lesson. If you missed it, you missed a great treasure that God had prepared for you. And he talked about the condition of the heart. You know, that's a problem with a lot of folks. They have a bad heart. They got heart problems. They got heart problems. If you have heart problems, you need to get it fixed. And bypass the world and get hooked back up, hook your heart back up to Christ. And when we look at Job chapter 1, Job was right where he was supposed to be. Verse number 1, it says this: there was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. I find that there are two words in that verse that weren't sad in the way of Job, but even as the introduction that I gave, it's sad in a lot of lives. Those two first words, there was. There was. Unfortunately, in life, there are a lot of Christians who used to do something for God and they don't do it anymore. And so as I looked at those two words, the there was, I look at this, it's a sad term for many believers. When we look at our lives personally, what I was, where I was, and when I was. What I was, I used to be sold out. I used to love the Lord. I used to be a soul winner, but I'm not anymore. And then where I was, I used to be faithful to the house of God. When the doors were open, that's where I would be. But oh, life changes, doesn't it? The not best becomes okay. We start making excuses in life, saying, well, I would do this, but something better's come along. You know, there's some folks in the Bible, the Lord said, hey, have them come. Have them come. Well, you know, Dad might die, so I can't come. Well, this and this and this. And the Bible does talk about the ox being in the ditch, but God never tells you to take it there. Well, I would be in church, Pastor, but they're making me work long hours. Well, sometimes if you sign up for overtime, maybe you should tell them not Sunday. Where was I? See, there was a time when what was I? I used to be a Sunday school teacher. I'm not anymore. I used to go to Sunday school, but I don't anymore. Used to be in the choir, but I'm not anymore. I used to do this and I used to do that. And over we can hear the excuses, but it always comes back to this sad, sad place. What I was and where I was and when I was. There was a day that I was right with God. But as Demas, there came something in life that became more precious than my relationship with God. When I was sold out, when I was a friend of God, David, when I was a man after God's own heart, but you can believe me, when he started lusting after Bathsheba, that's not what God was done. He was being watched. There was a time when I was a little bit better. There was a time when I was a lot better. There was a time when I was a father who led my children in a godly direction. There was a time when I was a mother, when I led my children in a godly direction. There was a time when I was sold out for Christ. Sad, sad words. There was. And then we look at the present condition, not just the personal condition, but the present condition of man. Where are they? You know, we look for the one, but we continually find the nine. Where is that gap stander? Where is the one who will stand in the gap and take up the hedge? Well, there used to be some. Where is the next Ford Porter who wrote God's simple plan of salvation? But it didn't start with God's simple plan of salvation. It started with a prayer. Lord, give me a ministry that will outlast me. Lord, give me something that will go far beyond where I am. When I'm dead and gone, there'll be a ministry to continue on. And we passed out thousands of his tracts. We just ordered, a couple thousand more or 1,000 more of his tracts to hand out. You know why? Because there was a time, there was a man who said, I will stand in the gap. Oh, did it take sacrifice? Yes. Did it take going beyond excuse? Yes, it did. Where are they now? Where are the ones who will stand in the gap? One of my friends said some of the greatest preachers of all time live today. And I told him, yes, but they lack one thing. That is the power of God. We have a lot of dictation and little power. Little power. That we would get back to the place where we search the Word of God for His leading more than a beautifully written script to be presented from a pulpit. God help us. We have churches today who, if you want to, or if a person would want to go to pastor there, they'd say, okay, fill out this resume, and then meet with the pastoral commission, and they will sit and they will drill you and grill you and find out if they like your personality or not. No, 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 no. A church looks for a pastor. They get on their knees and ask God to give them a man.
Amen.
Now there are things where we would look into a man's past, but the place to start, seeking God's face. You young people, you decide to date, decide to marry one day, well, you ought to be praying for your bride every day of your life. Aaron Porter, you ought to get on your knees at night. Ask God, protect my bride. Because, son, it's going to take a lot of protection these days. Protect her, God, and help me to be the person that's protected for her. Help her to stay pure. You girls here on the front, you ought to be praying, oh, God, protect my future husband. Keep it pure, because there's not many pure people out there anymore. Where are they? Oh, they used to be. Sin used to be sin. Sad, sad term as there was. Where are they? Who are they? There needs to be some giant killers again. Isn't that wonderful? The song they sang this morning. Used to be some giant killers out there. Some powerhouses that stand fast. I want you to know the attacks of the devil are not going to stop. They're just going to grow and grow. They talk and talk and talk about taxing the churches. They talk and talk about bringing in those who don't believe like we do and bring them into the church and bringing them into the ministry and not giving you a choice. I want you to know tough times could very well be coming to the state of Indiana. Just look at the neighboring states where governors were able to shut down entire states without anybody's approval. I just say it, and it's law. I'm not saying what they did was wrong, but what I am saying is How does one man have a right to shut an entire state down just by the word of his mouth? Without having any backing? Congress, no one. I just say it and everybody has to do it. We're in some perilous times. We need some elected officials. There used to be some. In the back of my Bible, I have written, let me find it. By Patrick Henry. The young people at Calvary have this in their paces. And so I copied it one day and wrote it in the back of my Bible. Patrick Henry said this. Now, we all know some of the things Patrick Henry said, but most history classes don't teach you this, and I want you to pay specific attention. It cannot be emphasized too strongly or too often that this nation was founded not by religionists, but by Christians. Not on religion, and I like this part, get ready to shout, this is good. Not on religion, but on the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen. So it used to be, there was a time where there were some giants willing to die for their country and knew where their country was founded and they weren't ashamed to say it. Not afraid to say the name of Jesus Christ. And then we see the upright. It's time for the upright to return. I was working at the house with my dad, making obviously something for stupid chickens. And we were making this chicken feeder. And I went to go do something. And I turned around. And you ever fallen in slow motion? You ever done that? It's like your whole life flashes before your eyes. You know, and my wife turns and she sees me. And there I go. And I reach for anything. And there was nothing there. And I twist around on this right foot. And I fall down. Feeling stupid. Hurting. It's a lot of guy to pick up off the ground. A lot. It wasn't funny. Yeah, I looked at you, Quarter. I fell down. The alarms went off on the cars down at Walmart's parking lot. Again, not funny. It's one of those jokes you aren't supposed to laugh at. My sweet wife comes running up. My dad won't look because he's afraid he'll see the blood of his son pouring out upon the ground. My wife walks up and says, "Just lay there." I was like, that's an interesting thing for you to say. For how long? Just forever? You know, you're just going to cover me with a blanket and put me in a bag? What kind of thing? Just lay there. Oh, okay. Just say that in the morning. Could you get out of bed already? Just lay there. And so I did. I'm an obedient husband. And I roll over. She said, "What hurts?" "My everything." And so I start getting up, and I thought, okay, I don't feel too bad. Hit my knee, hit my hip, hit my shoulder, hit my head, hit my back. But this side was pretty okay. And I got up and finished the day, and then I stopped. Wrong decision. When you stop, it starts hurting real bad. And my foot started throbbing. But I got upright. This morning I got up, and after my foot didn't move all night, you know, then you get up and it's like, But we got to get upright. Some of you have been knocked down a few times. Just get upright and keep going. He said, "But Brother John, you don't know how tough it is." You're right. I don't get it. Just like you don't know what I'm going through. I don't know what you're going through. So you've laid still. You've reorganized your thoughts. You've thought about things. Now just get up and keep going. Just get up. You're not going to do anything for the cause of Christ. Just laying there. It's dead men. Get up and serve on. A man. Just one man. Now think about this. Let's go back through there. A man, that man was perfect. What? That man. Now think about this. Wasn't his wife. No, she failed. Don't look at his friends. Don't look at his children. He'll even sacrifice at their cause. They could have all been mentioned, but he only mentions one. Are you willing to be that man? If your wife goes left or goes south, will you still stand? If your husband goes south, ladies, will you still stand? Children, if your parents turn their back on God, will you still stand? See, today we have a bunch of young people who say, oh, you don't understand the social pressures I have. Bless God, you can still stand. Amen. Old Job didn't, none of his family was mentioned. None of his friends were mentioned who were going to come and preach messages to him about how carnal he is. His wife said, why don't you just curse God and die? That had to be a tough one. Lost all his children, but kept her. You know, Lord, why couldn't you just send a tornado? Take her too? Come on. I mean, this woman's telling me, literally told him, why don't you just go curl up in a ball and die? What a shame. Been knocked down. Maybe you're standing all alone, but you just keep standing. But you give up. People will pressure you not to do what you know is right. You stand anyway because God's noticing the man. He mentioned children. The devil comes to make accusations. Have you seen the man? That man, that upright man, that righteous man. See, we can talk about our church as a whole, but I want to ask you, what about you? If the devil comes to Jesus today, and he said, I've been running to and fro throughout the earth, and they're all turning their back on you. Can he say, go look in Linton, Indiana, and open up the doors of Calvary Baptist Church and go in pew number such and such? Because that's where my man is. That's where my man is. He's just and he's upright. That's what man I want to be. What set Job apart? Just like Brother Donnie said this morning, it was a heart condition. It was a heart condition. Psalm 7:10 says, my defense is of God, which saveth the upright in heart. You know what was different about Job than everybody else? It was he was upright, not on the outside only. It was on the inside too. Today we learned in Sunday school, and what a wonderful lesson, and it keeps pulling back to the message, that there are so many people who polish the outside, but their hearts are dirty and awful and full of self-righteousness. Over and over we look at the Bible talking about, oh, their outside looks good, and their whited sepulchres, and beneath it is dead men's bones. And oh, how many times do we put on a spiritual facade, a pharisaical act? Look at me. And here, it's just not there. It's just not there. We sit, we look at the words that everybody speaks, and look at them under a magnifying glass. And we inspect everyone else, but we don't inspect our own hearts. Old Job was an upright man. I had a tree in my front yard. I had lots of trees in my front yard. Most of them are dead now. Cut them down. But I had one of my plant bigger trees in my front yard over by the gas meter, which was always fun. And it started kind of like this. Then it kind of got to this. Then it kind of got to this. Before long, the bottom limbs are touching the ground. And then before long, the middle limbs are touching the ground. And my tree went from this to about like this. And I said, how bizarre. I looked at that tree and I said, it's very strange. One of our deacons and my trustees here said, hey, we'll take care of that tree. Brother Justin Quarters about made me promise never to touch a chainsaw the rest of my life. If you've ever seen me work a chainsaw, you'll know why. They said, we'll come take care of that tree for you. I said, thank you so much. It's a little bigger than I can handle. And so Brother Levi came and his boys came and chopped that thing up and ran it through the chipper and all that. And Brother Levi said there's roots down there, but it's strange. So he looked it up on the internet and found out that this is what's happened, if I understand him correctly. We bought that tree as a ball tree. It had the roots already wrapped up in canvas. And then that canvas stuff just rots away and the roots continue to grow out. But when they put those roots in there, instead of making them point down, they kind of wrapped them around the base. Those roots just continue to grow in that direction, around and around. And I believe the term is it girdled it. You know, if you take and go around a tree with a chainsaw in about ½ an inch, you're going to kill that tree if you go all the way around. Well, if you look at the tree trunk, it goes like this, and then to underground, it does that. I'm afraid that's what's wrong with a lot of Christians. They're big and green up top, but in the root, they're wrapped around themselves. Their roots are all about them, not about Him. I want you to know, you keep wrapping up in yourself, you are going to fall. And your fall will be great. The upright. And then we see his reverence and awe. Let's go back to Job chapter 1. Perfect, upright, one that feared God. He was in reverence of God and in awe of Him. In Psalm 33, verse 8, let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of Him. You stand in awe of He who saved your soul. Stand in awe of He who saw something in you when all that you had to show Him was your righteousness as filthy rags. Oh, what a wonderful Father. You stand in awe and reverence. Old Job did. If you want to be the man, you want to be that man that God can tell even the devil about, you're going to have to stand in reverence and fear of God. Stand in awe. And number next, He eschewed evil. Oh, this is a problem today. We don't have a lot of folks, or very many folks, who eschew evil. In 1 Thessalonians 5:22, it says to abstain from all appearance of evil. You ought to just go ahead and write that, or get one of these fellas that do wood carving or whatever, and let's just go ahead and hang that above our TV and our computers. Maybe have that as your wallpaper on your phone, abstain from all appearance of evil. That's tough. That's tough. Where can you look where there's no evil? Can't even buy a soft drink now without it having the appearance of evil. That's sad. One of you sent me a post about a soft drink company and you bunch of right-wing nuts, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm moral. And I believe the old book. I don't even know what the controversy is. All I know is he said right-wing nuts, and I'm a nut. I am a right-wing nut. Bible-thumping right-wing nut. Because this is always right, and it's always on my wing, so I guess I'm a right-wing nut. I don't know what the controversy is. You can't go to stores taking stands against the Word of God. Eschew it. Means keep away from it. If it appears evil, stay away from it. Keep back from it. Little Lydia walked out here with the Carter girl. Little Hannah and her came in, said, oh, there's some beautiful, cute little kitty cats. Baby kittens. Can we have them? I said, where are they? They're in the backyard. Really? Well, they look like, oh, they're black and white. I said, really? I go see them. Yeah, they were black and white. They had a stripe right down the back of the mama. I said, oh, honey, you don't want to get hold of that kitty cat. But, Daddy, and I said, no, stay away. And then the mama left, and all the babies left except for one. And that little baby walking in circles. But Dad, look, and the temptation was there. Go to the baby, and that baby probably wouldn't have bit, and it probably wouldn't have stunk her up either. But you can be assured of something, Mama was coming back. Right. Some of you playing with sin. I want you to know, you dance to the fiddle, you got to pay the fiddler. You're going to have to pay him. And you play with sin, the devil's coming. It's going to cost you more than you want to pay. It'll ruin your life. You say, well, do you hate me? No, I love you. And so's the Lord. And if you want to be a man or that man, like Job, eschew evil, despise it, turn away from it, run from it, shun it, and avoid it. That just doesn't smell right. It doesn't smell right, and you go ahead and do it, you're fixing to mess up. You're fixing to mess up. Eschewed evil. So there was, and now there is. There is an enemy. You better be ready for him. There is an enemy. You better be ready for him. In 1 Peter 5, 8, and 9, it says this, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. First we look and see that there is looking for those who he can devour. The devil's looking for you. Devil went to and fro through the earth, looking for who he could eat up. He's looking for you. He's looking for your family. Daddies, if he can get you, he can get your children. Old Job said, no. I'm going to go beyond what has to be done. Because I'm watching for my children. I'm watching for my grandchildren. I'm watching for my wife. I'm going to do everything I can to keep them spiritual. He's looking. There is an enemy that's looking, and there is an enemy that knows where you live. I was a boy, we had a creek, like in your neck, but this was a creek. My dad tells me all the time I say that wrong. A creek running at the bottom of a hill. There's a deep spot in it, and back then, it was a time when you could just go out and go someplace without having your parents having to be worried that you're going to be kidnapped or anything like that. And maybe my parents were just hoping, I don't know. And they'd ring the dinner bell, gong, 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 and I knew, hey, it's time to come home. So I went down to the creek, and I'd take a little mason jar with me. I'd go down, I'd play in the creek, and whether I came home with leeches or whatever, I'd play in there, and until I was pruning. And I went down there to this creek, and I take that mason jar. Who knows why I take a mason jar to a creek? Yeah, boy. Take that mason jar down to that creek, and I put it down in the water ever so gently. And then I would take and I'd put it behind a crawdad. You know what a crawdad is? That's who made all these humps out here in the front yard, except those are big ones. put it up there, and then I put my finger in front of them, and they swim backwards. They never saw it coming. And they go in, I pick it up, and if I had 2 jars, I just keep catching crawdads until, I didn't do anything with them other than look at them and say, ha ha, I caught you. But, sometimes the devil's the same way. He comes up behind you. He's got the trap right there. And you just never see it coming. Oh, be vigilant. Look for his traps. Be vigilant. Eschew evil. Look for the traps of the devil. The enemy doesn't know your heart or your motive. Let's look at verse number 9. Actually, let's read 6 and then 9. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Drop down to 9. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught? Oh, now we see that the devil is accusing. Satan didn't know why Job loved God so much. He doesn't understand why you love the Lord, because he doesn't love him. Satan believed Job was upright just because of God's blessing. I hope our spiritual life is a little deeper than that. I hope your spiritual life is a little deeper than as long as God is blessing me, I'm going to be spiritual. I know folks will come up to me, and it's happened all throughout my ministry. Oh, Brother John, seems like every time I have my devotions, my day is horrible. Well, duh. Well, duh. Of course it is. Because the devil knows that that's going to be your reasoning. So he says, okay, I'll let everything be bad. I'll help you to stop having those devotions as long as that's all it takes. As long as all it takes is a little something on Sunday morning to keep you out of church, he's going to let it happen every time because he's got you. And you don't even know it. Like that crawdad swimming in circles. Doesn't even know he's caught. He's just swimming in circles, and he's a captive. So many folks say, well, this happened this Sunday, and this happened that Sunday, and this happened the next Sunday. You know what? Those things, you might as well get used to them, because as long as that's all it takes to stop you, that's what's coming. I believe it wholeheartedly. Now, I can't prove this in Scripture, but when you fake sick on Sunday, I think the Lord might just make you sick next Sunday or the next day. You say, can you prove that? No, I can't. That's Johnology of the Bible. This shows us the devil views every man by his actions. When things aren't going well, what happens with you? His accusation against Job, saying Job only loves God for the blessings that God gives him. Are you going to love the Lord and stand for right even when things aren't going good? And then lastly, verse number 10, hast not thou made an hedge about him? So we talked about there was, and that was really sad. And then we talked about there is, and that's really scary because there's our enemy. And now we're going to talk about there are. I love this part. There are hedges placed around God's people. Amen. Boy, I should have done better than that. There are hedges. World War II, and I know I've said this illustration many times, but maybe some of you haven't heard it. But World War II, my wife's grandfather landed off the beaches of Normandy, and he was to be on the first wave, which was a bloodbath, and they waved his troop mover, whatever those things are called. I know they have a good name, but I can't get it right now. Anyway, he's sitting out there, and they had a little problem. They waved him off, said, you wait till the third or fourth wave. And so he's sitting out there waiting. They got the problem fixed, and he started towards the beach and landed on the beach. And the horrors he saw that day, I can't even imagine. And as they got across the beach, as we stormed the beaches of Normandy, and we came across there, they found that something had happened with their tanks. They brought in the heavy tanks and all the equipment. And nothing could stop our tanks. It didn't seem like we could be stopped for anything. But oh no, they ran into something. They ran into those old hedgerows. Those old hedgerows, they tried to go over them with the tank, and they could cross about anything. But oh, when they came across these old hedgerows, the roots went deep. And they get up there, and those hedges would get up in the tracks, and they'd stall and stop the tanks. They'd have to go in with dynamite and blow out the hedges just to get the tanks through. I want you to know my God's hedge will never be blown away. It's always there. The only way you get away from his hedge is when you jump it. It's when you jump it. It was placed there by God, 1 Thessalonians chapter 3 and verse number 3, that no man should be moved by these afflictions. For yourselves know that we are appointed thereunto. Oh, affliction's not going to move me. I'm going to stand fast because there is a hedge. There are hedges placed. And then we see those hedges are protecting the faithful. There's a day that a boy walked up to a stream and found 5 smooth stones. There's a day a prophet who sat and asked God just to take his life, and the ravens began to bring him food. There's a little ark stuck in the bulrushes. It was protected by God. There's an ark when the earth was flooded. An ark carried a family and animals. There was a star over Bethlehem. A cross at Calvary. An empty tomb that was borrowed. A heavenly home that's being prepared. And called to the clouds that's coming. A mountain that will be split. An imminent victory of our Lord Jesus Christ. Praise God that there is protection for the faithful. And then pushing out the enemy. The enemy is going to be pushed out. In Psalm 46, it says this, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed and the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. No matter what, we know our God is able to see us through as long as we stay within the hedgerow. And then these were purposefully planted. These hedges were purposefully planted about his people, his righteous people, his right people, his holy people. He plants his hedge about them. Why? To bless the believers? Oh, yes. And to keep out the devourer. The saddest thing in the world is when you see a believer who knows what's right and doesn't do it. They come up and they can always say, I used to be. But they never looked strong enough and hard enough for the enemy. They forgot there is an enemy. And because there is an enemy and they're without the hedge, they're devoured. Today, where are you? Where are you? Are you eschewing evil? Are you upright? Do you reverence God? Or are you living in the past of what you used to do for him? With heads bowed and eyes closed, stand to your feet if you